Welcome to this explainer. If you've ever dug into corporate sustainability reporting, you already know that categorization is literally everything. Put a business in the wrong bucket, and you completely skew how its environmental and social risks are understood. So today, we're unpacking the surprisingly strict boundaries of the forestry management industry under the SASB framework. Let's jump right in.
We have to start with a crucial question, one that challenges a really common assumption about green investing. Are all tree-related businesses reported the exact same way in ESG? I mean, you might look at a massive timber operation and a paper manufacturing plant and think, well, they both rely on trees, so they've got to face the same sustainability risks, right? But under international reporting standards, that assumption is entirely false.
To completely demystify these boundaries, here is our roadmap for today. 1. Defining forestry management. 2. Drawing the 6 boundaries. 3. Understanding included entities. 4. Key sustainability risks. And finally 5. Why classification matters.
Okay, let's kick things off with Section 1, Defining Forestry Management, the true foundation of ESG reporting.
Now, the definitions we are exploring today come directly from the internationally recognized SASB standards. And just for some context, as of August 2022, these standards came under the stewardship of the ISSB. That's the International Sustainability Standards Board, which is part of the IFRS Foundation. This gives the framework we're looking at immense institutional weight. When we talk about these rules, we are really talking about the global baseline for sustainability-related financial disclosures.
So, to categorize companies, SASB uses what's called the Sustainable Industry Classification System, or SICS. This is a highly rigorous framework that categorizes industries not just by what they sell, but by the specific sustainability risks they actually face. Under this system, forestry management is nested under the broader renewable resources and alternative energy sector, and it's assigned a very specific industry code, RRFM. Whenever you see RRFM, you know exactly what standard is being applied.
Moving right along to Section 2, drawing the 6 boundaries. Literally, where does the forest end? The best way to think of the RRFM boundary is strictly dirt to harvest. It covers growing the trees and cutting them down. That's it. The very moment that harvested wood goes to a mechanical sawmill, a wood products facility, or a pulp and paper mill, it crosses a hard boundary. It instantly becomes a manufacturing issue. Those downstream processing activities are deliberately excluded from RRFM and routed to entirely different industry standards, like building products and furnishings or pulp and paper products. And it makes sense, right? The risks of running a loud, energy-intensive chemical paper mill are fundamentally different from managing a quiet, growing forest.
Which brings us to Section 3, Understanding Included Entities. Who actually fits into RRFM? You might assume this category is just about managing wild, natural forests, but it actually casts a much wider net. It specifically includes planted forestry lands, distinct timber tracts, and even operations you might not immediately think of, like non-retail tree nurseries and rubber plantations. Basically, if a company's core business relies on the cultivation and harvesting of trees on a commercial scale, this is their designated category. But here is a really crucial point. A forestry business doesn't actually have to own the dirt to be classified here. The industry conducts operations on lands that can be fully entity-owned, sure, but they can also be leased from private or public landowners. From a reporting perspective, leasing land carries the exact same expectations as owning it. You are still fully responsible for the sustainability impacts that happen under your management, regardless of whose name is on the deed.
Let's dive into Section 4, Key Sustainability Risks. What are the unique challenges of the forest?
The SASB standard identifies 3 distinct disclosure topics for this industry. We've got ecosystem services and impacts, rights of indigenous peoples, and climate change adaptation. The standard dictates that these 3 specific areas have a reasonable expectation of affecting a company's cash flows, their access to finance, or their cost of capital over the short, medium, or long term.
Let's break those down, starting with ecosystem services. Look, forests aren't just timber factories. They provide massive value through carbon sequestration, water purification, and wildlife habitats. So entities have to measure and disclose the total acreage they have that is certified to third-party standards. We're talking about organizations like the Forest Stewardship Council or the Sustainable Forestry Initiative. On top of that, they must track exactly how much of their managed land overlaps with critical endangered species habitats or officially protected conservation areas. It's all about meticulously quantifying their ecological footprint. Next, we absolutely have to look at the human element. Because forests contribute directly to the livelihoods of millions worldwide, companies must actively engage local communities. The standard actually requires entities to detail their due diligence practices to uphold human rights and the rights of indigenous peoples. This means taking concrete steps like conducting real impact evaluations, forming formal partnerships, and hosting multi-stakeholder community meetings. This is to ensure total alignment with international frameworks, like the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples.
The third pillar is climate change adaptation. Obviously, climate change presents severe physical risks to forests. Think more frequent extreme weather, devastating wildfires, and the rapid migration of pests. But interestingly, the standard also notes potential opportunities, things like longer growing seasons in higher latitudes. Entities have to describe their long-term strategies here, which might involve diversifying their tree species, developing more tolerant tree varieties, or even adjusting the timing of their planting and harvesting to optimize productivity in a rapidly warming world.
And finally, Section 5, Why Classification Matters. We are talking about precision in global investment risk. Ultimately, this all comes down to comparability. Investors use these exact baseline activity metrics, the total area of forest land in hectares, the aggregate standing timber inventory in cubic meters, and the timber harvest volume, to scale the data. Think about it. You just can't compare the raw carbon footprint of a boutique tree nursery with a massive multinational timber tract. But by using these activity metrics to normalize the data, investors can accurately compare the severity of sustainability risks across entirely different companies as long as they fall within the RRFM designation.
So this clear classification prevents bad data. If these boundaries didn't exist, investors might accidentally mix the ecological risks of growing trees with the heavy industrial and chemical risks of manufacturing paper. By isolating dirt to harvest into its very own category, the SASB standards ensure that capital markets can accurately assess the true cost of capital based on the actual operational reality of the business. I want to leave you with this final thought to consider. As our physical world transforms, as forests migrate, as growing seasons shift, and extreme weather completely alters what it even means to manage land, how long will these precise reporting lines in the dirt hold up? Will the very definition of forestry management have to adapt just as much as the forests themselves? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and remember to keep asking the right questions about the data behind the standards.